Hey everybody, Anish Majumdar here, career coach to the fiercely ambitious, and I got to talk about this because I talk about a lot of practical things. If you've been following my videos, you know that about me. I'm a deeply practical guy, but the truth is, this is at least as important as anything else that I could tell you, and that is this. How are you handling the toxic people in your life? What is your game plan for addressing that? You know, Eleanor Roosevelt said that no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. And in my own life, certainly, that happened to be true. I want to share a little story with you. When I was a teenager, I was a big soccer player. And I used to play for what was called an intercity team in Montreal. That was one where your city's team would go play another's team and so on and so forth. And so I had a coach who was really well known and stuff like that, you know, in the juvenile soccer world, for whatever that's worth. And from day one, he took me on, and I knew that I was entering in what was called like a bit of a boys' club. I grew up in a very working class suburb of Montreal called LaSalle, and you know, the kids there had grown up with each other. The coach had known the kids. You know, it was one of those things. You know. So I was a consummate outsider, even though I'd grown up there. You know, from day one. And I knew that, but I joined anyway. And the coach told me from the beginning, you know, and this is, by the way, is a real warning sign of a toxic person, okay? From day one, this coach sat me down and said, look, you're not going to be playing as much as my regulars. You're not going to be doing as much as my regulars. But, you know, essentially, be lucky that you're here. You're going to learn some stuff, and we might be able to make use of you. By the way, signal number one of a toxic person and a toxic employer, do they start conversations with you by lowering your expectations? That's a big, big, big no-no. So, anyway, going back to my story. I start playing in this inner-city team, right? I'm a defenseman. I'm good at it. I keep getting benched. I keep getting feeling humiliated because I just go through games doing every practice, but really not having a chance to shine. My parents were there, and I remember my dad saying, look, just stick with it, you know? It's just the way that it is. One day you're going to get your shot. One day you're going to get your shot. You just keep your head down, and you're going to get your shot. And you know what? Isn't that what a lot of toxic bosses out there say? Hey, you just take the abuse. You're all right. I'm going to teach you the way that it is, and one day you're going to get your shot. And you know what happened? Nothing happened. I never got a shot. I never was able to blossom. And it wasn't until I started playing soccer in high school and older that I was able to recognize, Jesus Christ, I'm good at this. I'm good. I'm really good at this. So that's what a toxic coach taught me, is that a toxic person will lie to you. A toxic person will say pretty much whatever is going to serve their purposes to achieve their ends. So maybe you're saying to yourself, Anish, that's all fine and good for soccer, but I've got a job and I've got a boss who's not the best. And I can't just say, hey, screw you, take a hike, right? Maybe you can, in which case get out of there, but maybe you can't. So what is a way to think about addressing this? Number one is to realize that there's no winning a game with a toxic person. Like, you could try to kowtow to them, but you're still going to end up feeling like you've lost. You can end up fighting them, and you're still going to come up in conflict with them, because the game that they play can only be won by them. You can never, ever win their game. The game is not designed for you to ever win that. And that was something I struggled with for many, many years, is that if I could just crack the code, if I could just give this person what they want, then they would stop being mean to me, they would stop tearing me down, and they'd start seeing me as an equal. But the game and whatever pathways they tell you is all a red herring. The purpose of their game is to keep abusing you and to keep you down. So, what do you do if you're in this situation? Step number one, identify the fact that it's a circle too. You know, it's a cycle, what's going on here. You know, and you play a role in that cycle. You know, I'd like to tell you that if you're trapped in one of these situations with a toxic boss, a toxic family member, and yes, I know a lot of people out there are not going to agree with me on this, but I'm a big believer that if you have someone truly toxic in your life, I don't care if they are a family member. Do you understand that the low people, the angry people, the people who don't have your best interests are going to take you down whether you share a last name with them or not? My advice for them is the same as the advice I would have for a toxic boss, honestly, and that's this. Number one, identify the fact that there's a cycle going on, okay? You're running this, the other person is running this, and you guys are engaged in this dance. So you've got to stop the dance. There is no way that you're going to dance your way out of this. So number one, reframe, okay? Once you identify that this is going on, reframe the situation. Set up a meeting with your boss. Talk about the fact that you're having trouble executing the work that you need to do at this level in the way that it is set up. That essentially you're setting up some new ground rules if you can, some new ways of working. Maybe you don't want to be barraged with emails first thing on Monday morning. Maybe you can just put together an update on a Tuesday and then we can go through that in one shot. You got to come in with some alternatives here. Don't just come in there, start complaining. That's definitely not going to work. You got to come in with a plan. The good news is the plan does not have to be perfect, but it has to be a point of engagement. Lay out an alternate way of working and lay out the why you're asking this, okay? The existing way is not delivering the best results that I am capable of delivering. This is an alternate way for us to get to that point. That's reframe. Let's say you get some buy-in for that. Wonderful. Maybe there's compromise there. If there's not, you're going to move into stage two. Stage two is distance, all right? And I found this, I've dealt with toxic clients. I've dealt with toxic business partners. I've dealt with toxic, obviously, coaches. I've dealt with toxic people, even family members. I've dealt with toxic people, okay? A lot of times the reframe is not going to work, but you should absolutely do the reframe first so that you can say, if only for yourself, I gave it every shot that I had. I tried my best to change this situation and lay out a new way. And so if it doesn't work, so be it. Okay, fine. Stage two, distancing yourself. Okay, with a toxic person, the big mistake, don't ask for permission to distance yourself. Just do it. Okay, if someone is barraging your inbox 5 times a day, stop answering their emails. Like, set aside a time to say, I'm checking Jim's emails once at 4 p.m. every day, or every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And that's just it. Let them adjust how they're gonna do it. Remember, a toxic person will never let you win their game. You will never be able to please them. You will never be able to satisfy them because they get off on making you feel less than how they do. That's not a game that you can ever win. So when it comes to distancing, just do it. All right? If you've tried to reframe and it doesn't work, just change the behavior to preserve yourself and do the best things that you do. Sometimes you just have to wedge in that distance and let them do what they're going to do. Let them do what they're going to do. Prepare yourself for a little bit of a fight, but realize the old cliche, it's true. It is always, with rare exceptions, better to ask forgiveness than it is to ask permission. Finally, the last stage is removal. Some people are just lost. Some people are just negative. Some people have just fundamentally lost the thread of what makes life good, and they have become a force of evil in life. That's just the truth of it. I don't want to be too dramatic, and I'm an actor, so I am always at risk of that. But that's the truth. Some people are just head cases. They're just nuts. There's no way that you're going to be able to fix that, right? They're just going to make your life absolutely miserable. So you need to make a decision. If you've tried to reframe and it doesn't work, you've tried to distance and it's not enough, at that point it is about pure self-preservation. And you need to make a decision and say, is my life, my happiness, and the happiness by extension of my family and the people I care about, is that worth me standing up and walking away from the situation? Is that worth me aggressively ramping up a job search and making this happen? I can't answer that for you, but the thing is, if you're not going to fight for yourself, who is? If you're not going to take a stand when you're being wronged, who is? How will you ever be able to do that in the future if you can't do this right now? And I know that that's painful, and I know that that's a scary thing to say, It was scary for me to walk away from my soccer coach all those years ago. At the time, I felt, and I was called a quitter. I was a quitter for leaving, and that hurt my feelings, and that definitely took a ding on my self-esteem for sure. But it allowed me through that trauma to come out the other side and rediscover why I loved playing that game, why I loved doing what I was doing. So it was a blessing, and I don't feel bad for it. I look at every negative person I've ever come across as life trying to teach me something, trying to blare out and say, you need to make a change in your life to adjust to that. And so if removal is part of it, maybe that's what we need to do. Maybe we need to truly cut ties and let those downers and those depressives and those evil people and those toxic people, let them swim down the little sinkhole of their lives into destruction. And we don't have to be a part of that. You don't have to witness it. You certainly should never aid and abet that. So I know that this is easier said than done. And I know that this is a hard topic, not least of which because I know, having spent over 10 years working with job seekers, that there's a lot of people out there who are dealing with the pain of this. And I know that it hurts. And I know that it takes something out of you every day that you got to put up with that. So beyond my advice, just stay strong. Know that you're here for a reason. Know that your life, your family, everything that you do is for a purpose, and that you are standing on the shoulders of so much amazing work and successes, and you deserve a better situation. And you have the insight and the intelligence inside of you to make that happen for yourself. And I sincerely hope that you will, and know that you have a friend in here and a friend in your corner. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope that has been helpful. If you have any questions about it, or if you've dealt with a similar situation, or if you're currently dealing with that, let me know. And if it's a little too public to drop me a comment on this video, shoot me a message. Shoot me a private message. I'd love to know. I'll talk to you guys soon. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the day. Bye-bye.